Hey guys, welcome to the American Tribune Live. I am Todd Peterson. Who needs Democrats when you've got neocons, RINOs, warmongers, anti-MAGA Republicans against Trump? Make no mistake, Democrats are not the issue. They're not the party in power anymore. They lost the popular vote. We have everything we need in place to get things done. The only people standing in our way are the Nikki Haley's, the Mike Johnsons, who's trying to say some things, but we've got a clip of Johnson today. I don't think you will actually believe it when you see it, some of the stuff he is saying. Before we get into the show today, just a little house cleaning. I have been really bad about this. I want to talk about the American Tribune Network really quickly, and then we'll dive into the subject as we blast all of these neocons, rightfully so. They need to be out of here. We need to primary, we need to recall, we need to get rid of people that call themselves conservative Republicans, but stand for nothing that we actually do as conservatives. And I am loath to use the word Republican. It is a meaningless term. When I think of Republican, it sounds like a pejorative. I'm a conservative. I'm America first. I am MAGA. I am not a Republican. Never registered, never will be. I vote Republican because that's the option in the two-party system. We need to remake the GOP, remake the Republican Party, but I am no means a Republican. When I think of Republican, I think of the Mitt Romneys, the John McCains, the Nikki Haley's, the Mike Johnsons, all of the losers that have prevented us from achieving greatness in this country. But the American Tribune, folks, I appreciate you tuning into the show. Appreciate you watching our other content. We have 2 Rumble channels. I know I've got viewers that have crossed over to this newer channel. So this is the American Tribune Live. This is where I'm hosting the live podcast. We have a larger main channel on Rumble. That is at the American Tribune. And you can find that branding across all of social media. If you like this content, if you want to see other content like it, we have several podcasts. We have a website. We've got a Telegram. We've got our Twitter pages. We've got everything. So usually you're going to find that at the American Tribune. So you can search us out on Telegram if that's where you want to get information. We post articles, other promotional deals. We post the podcast on there. You can go to Facebook. We have 15 pages on Facebook. One of them is the American Tribune, so you can search that out. You'll see content that gets shared across all the other Facebook platforms, but that's where you're going to get access to our website where we post articles. That's at theamericantribune.com. And if you like some of the merch we got, folks, it doesn't help us out a whole lot. We make a few bucks off the mugs, off the hat, nothing too fancy. But if you want to rep the American Tribune, you can go to the americantribunestore.com, theamericantribunestore.com. And we add some stuff up there every now and then as well. Again, just to get the message out, and it gives me more than anything, it's for me. I have a mug, I have a hat, I have a shirt. I got the onesie for my kids. We got a little Gadsden flag onesie for your newborns. I have 2 littles at home. We can talk about life with littles later on in the show, but we've got a lot to get into, folks. So that is kind of the broad overview of what we do at the American Tribune. We have a conservative bent, an America First bent. We want to get you real news, and it's glorious to see. Our website gets millions of hits every month, and I think we probably get more than CNN, MSNBC at this point. Those ratings are in the tank. Nobody is tuning into them anymore. Nobody cares what they have to say, rightfully so. And so now the real war is going to be waged on these neocons that refuse to go away. Despite Donald Trump's resounding victory, and yes, it was resounding, Republicans didn't win in November. Donald Trump and the America First movement won in November. Americans won in November. We sent a message to all of the GOP old guard that we're not playing your stupid game anymore. We don't want to get lied to every 4 years. We don't want to be sold on. We're going to fight for right to life and guns and watch those get just destroyed anyways as we ignore larger issues about what our economy is doing, what our federal government is doing, what the military-industrial complex is doing. There are so many larger issues out there. On the back end of this, I've got to talk about a personal experience where I attended a conference in Minnesota with just Nikki Haley's everywhere. Hundreds of Nikki Haley supporters in a room as we're trying to save my home state of Minnesota from Democrats. And you know what? These guys are as much of a problem, and I would argue more of a problem, because they're the ones standing in the way of actual reform in my blue state of Minnesota and blue states across the country. So we can talk about the local issues I face, but that easily extrapolates out to the rest of the nation because, like so many of you, you live in a blue state. Or, as Charlie Kirk explains, I got a clip of him, you live in a deep red state, Idaho, Mississippi. Across the nation, you're thinking, yes, we have all of these conservative Americans. We elect Republicans to the governor's office. We send Republican senators to Washington, D.C. And you have some of the worst people in the establishment out there. So we've got to do better, red state folks. And blue state folks, we've got to get rid of these neocon grifters that love to lose. They love to fundraise on losing and blame Democrats for all the problems you experience when they're the ones that create it, when they're the ones that don't want to offer a solution here. So we got a lot to get into. We'll dive into some clips. And the show is titled that we're featuring special guest Royce White. I'll talk about him in just a second. We're hoping he joins the program. This is a busy man. He just wrapped up his campaign cycle a couple of weeks ago. Hoping to have him on the show today. And so stay tuned for that. He said he would pop in the next half hour. And look, if he doesn't pop in, I get it. I get it. He is busy. He has his own show. He hosted a space late night on X that I caught. He's been very busy, very active on his own program. He has his own podcast. He hosts his own Twitter spaces. He is already gearing up for more great things in Minnesota. This is an America First Minnesotan trying to reform the corrupt and useless and spineless GOP here. So hoping to have him on a little bit, but we have a lot to talk about anyways today. I'm going to start with this clip from Mike Johnson. I will say he has since backtracked from this position. He has come out a little firmer, but I want to show you where he was before someone pulled him aside and said, Mike, we won. It's time to say what Americans want to hear. This clip is from a couple of days ago. In the news right now, we're ignoring what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. Missiles are getting fired from both countries, but the biggest story on X, the biggest story that the media wants you to focus on is Tranny Timmy from Delaware, the first transgender congressman, will be entered in as a freshman congressman this coming January, whenever they go through that process. But we've got a man parading as a woman, going into Congress as a Democrat. And Mike Johnson was asked about that. And now I will say this as well. I was actually surprised. I followed things closely in the election. I missed this story, and not because I'm tuned out. I missed this story because the media intentionally buried it. Where was the celebration of the first trans congressperson in Washington, D.C.? There was no national media blitz. We should have been hearing about this everywhere. But you know what? The establishment, the media, they know that this is a losing issue with most Americans. Most Americans are opposed to this, not the you do you thing, but they're opposed to this forceful acceptance of a narrative, and not just acceptance, but you're supposed to tolerate and celebrate and affirm. Tranny Timmy can do whatever he wants. I am not going to call him a woman, but that's the game that they play. And so the media knows it's not popular with the American people, and they buried it. But we have our first trans person elected to Congress. This is what Mike Johnson said. Again, this was just a couple of days ago when asked directly about the issue.
Mr. Speaker, is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of the people. I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect, and we will. And I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this. There's a concern about the uses of restroom facilities and locker rooms and all that. This is an issue that Congress has never had to address before, and we're going to do that in deliberate fashion with member consensus on it, and we will accommodate the needs of every single person. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yes,
all right, so Mike Johnson asked directly, how do you feel about Sarah McBride is the name this person chooses to go by. Timmy McBride is the name he was born with, still pretending to be a woman. Nancy Mace introduced the bathroom bill that said, if you are a man, you use the men's restroom, and if you are a woman, you use the women's restroom. It has come to this, folks. We live in a crazy upside-down world. We actually have to introduce legislation in Congress to simply tell people, go use the bathroom that you are supposed to use. Mike Johnson, though, couldn't say that. And yes, he has retracted that, or rather clarified his comments. He's come out and said, if you're a man, you're a man. If you're a woman, you're a woman. There is now a rule in Congress that you have to use the bathroom of your biology, who you are. You have to abide by those basic principles and rules. But when he was first asked about this controversy a couple days ago, again, the Democrat-created controversy, let's force everyone to celebrate transgenderism. You have to believe that a man is a woman if they say so. We'll talk about what he said in a second, too, about we just want to be nice to everybody. Yeah, this is the failing neocon narrative. Just be nice to everyone. Because they're so nice to us, Mike. But he couldn't say that. He said, I don't want to touch on this. It's a delicate issue. You know, we're still working things out. Mike Johnson should have said from the beginning, this is not hard. He is a man. He will use the men's restroom. Now, on the point of being nice, this is where I would Imagine most Americans' land, myself included. You as an individual are free to self-determination. If you want to convince yourself that you're a member of the opposite sex, you are right to do that. You have the freedom to do that. But where your self-determination ends is where mine begins. You don't get to say, Todd, you will play by these rules. Or Mike Johnson in Congress, you're going to play by my rules. That's not how this works, and that's where they take it too far. You are a man. He is a man. He will use the men's restroom. That's all Mike Johnson had to say. Mike Johnson could have added in his, I'm going to be nice terms, he wants to identify as a woman. That is his prerogative, but we're not going to break tens of thousands of years of tradition and common sense to appease his delusions. If I ever met this individual, he wants to be called Sarah, I'll call him Sarah. I will not call him a woman, and I will tell him that he needs to use the men's restroom. This is not a hard concept. Sarah could be a nickname, just like any other nickname. My kids call me all sorts of nicknames. That is fine, but you are not a woman. That's all Mike Johnson had to say. But no, I'm going to tiptoe around this. I don't want to offend anybody. And again, is the left ever worried about offending you? Mike Johnson's been called a fascist by the left, but he's going to tiptoe around these issues still. But that's what we're up against. This is who we have in Congress. This is who we have representing Republicans, conservatives. Mike Johnson was elected in Louisiana. Do you think his voters agree with his sentiment to say, like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to be really sensitive and delicate, and we need to treat everyone with respect? Yes, you can treat them with respect. And you know what? Sometimes respect means telling them the truth. But deep red Louisiana sent Mike Johnson, this RINO neocon coward, into Washington, D.C., and he completely ignores how they feel, what they believe, what they know to be true. And it is across the board like that. Democrats can go be crazy all they want. Republicans are in power, and he is still doing this. And that's the point of the show. Who needs Dems when we have these neocons that prop up the insanity of the progressives? And so let us move on to, so there's your Mike Johnson clip. Yes, a man is a man, a woman is a woman. End of discussion. A reporter actually asked him that question. That's where we're at in the narrative today. And the America First movement has a chance to finally end this discussion. And you can be really simple about it. I'm going to say it one more time. You are free to determine for yourself how you want to live your life. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. You have that freedom. You have that right. You do not have the right to force that view upon me. I can call you a man. That is not mean. That is not rude. That is not nice. That is the reality. And I'm free to say that. I'm free to tell you reality. We got to talk about next. We're just going to jump topics here today. There is a lot going on with the Matt Gaetz situation. There's a lot going on with Russian-Ukraine. There's a lot going on with other Trump nominations. This one went viral. This was Nikki Haley talking about Tulsi Gabbard. Nikki Haley. Again, I have a Nikki Haley story at the end of the show today. This was her take on Tulsi Gabbard. Let's take a listen, and we'll set it up. We'll get some context, and we'll comment on the back end.
To Syria in 2017 for a photo op with Bashar al-Assad while he was massacring his own people. She said she was skeptical that he was behind the chemical weapons attacks. Now, this to me is disgusting because, Cheney, you and I were at the United Nations when Assad did those chemical attacks on those children. Yep. And you can go back and look at a speech I gave holding up pictures of dead children who had been killed by chemical attacks.
Yep, choked to death.
For her to say that Assad was not behind that, literally everything she said about that were Russian talking points. Every bit of that. That was Russian propaganda. After Russia invaded Ukraine, Tulsi Gabbard literally blamed NATO. Our Western alliance that's responsible for countering Russia, she blamed NATO for the attack on Ukraine. And the Russians and the Chinese echoed her talking points and her interviews on Russian and Chinese television. Tulsi Gabbard pushed for dropping charges against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and pardoning National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden, both whom were accused of leaking highly sensitive U.S. secrets that put Americans in danger. She called for Trump to end the destructive trade war with China. So now she's defended Russia, she's defended Syria, she's defended Iran, and she's defended China. Now, she has not denounced any of these views. None of them. She hasn't taken one of them back. D&I.
I'm laughing, folks. In a nutshell, this is everything that is wrong with the Republican Party. Everything you just heard from Nikki Haley, I'm going, yes, it is absolutely NATO's fault. That's why we voted for Trump, because he hates NATO. We need to dissolve NATO. At the very least, the United States needs to back out, but just dissolve NATO. It was NATO's actions. It was the CIA's actions in 2014, the U.S. intelligence agency, that led to the conflict we are currently in. I don't know how you have another opinion. Nikki Haley is not spouting an opinion. She's spouting lies. As far as the trade war with China, yes, America is getting hosed. American manufacturers are getting hosed. Why are we giving China a better economic deal in a trade that we can negotiate? Why aren't we trying to get the best deal possible? Everything about Iran and Syria that she's talking about, do you remember who was president when Syria blew up? Remember that JV squad that Barack Obama talked about? Everything that Nikki Haley said right here is why neocons are the biggest impediment to actual progress right now. Trump has the mandate. He has the House. He has the Senate. They could do wonderful things on all of these issues. They could make the world a safer place. They could bolster America's economy. They could end overnight the conflict in Ukraine. But because of people like Nikki Haley that love war, that love getting your sons and daughters killed needlessly, we are still there. It is all on the neocons. Honestly, when you listen to this, I can't think of a better clip to summarize where we're at right now. Thank goodness she got primaried. Thank goodness she got trounced. I can't believe she has a show. Who is listening to the Nikki Haley podcast over on Sirius? Folks, if you do watch Nikki Haley, come over to the American Tribune Live instead, and we will set your mind right. This is all nonsense. These are all talking points. And speaking of talking points, it is so tiring to listen to these people. Nikki Haley says it. You want to talk about echoing talking points? This is what the left is saying. If you disagree with me, you're a Russian asset. Trump has been Putin's asset since 2016. He won the election because Putin stole the election and Trump colluded with Russia. Remember all that? Like, you talk about echoing useless talking points. It is Nikki Haley going on, if you do this or you do that, you obviously work for Russia. She copied what Russia was saying, like, oh, it was NATO's fault. Yeah, it was NATO's fault. That's not a Russian talking point. That is just straight up true. If we didn't push so hard for Ukraine's incorporation into NATO, this isn't happening. And again, our guest today, Royce White, he was on his own space saying the exact same thing. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe we're on the same page with this. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 1960s, and how did America react when we had nuclear-capable missiles ready to launch 90 miles from our shoreline? We did not take that well. Why would we expect Vladimir Putin to accept NATO being on his doorstep? Once Ukraine's in NATO, all that means is we can put missiles closer to Moscow. That is it. Why should he have to accept that? Why should any other nation in the world have to accept a threat on their borders? Ukraine is the most corrupt country in the world. We love it there. We love to funnel money there. And we are simply saber rattling when we speak to them about their inclusion in NATO. It is absolutely ridiculous. But this is what we're up against. This is what Republicans, and yeah, I talk about the neocon politicians. I think a lot of my friends, I've been honest about my circle group. I am easily, and I'll say far right as a compliment. I think if you're not far right, then you are brainwashed. They have conservative values. They look at the insanity of the Democrat Party and they say, gosh, I cannot vote for Kamala Harris because every single thing she touches is incorrect. She wants an open border. She wants these endless wars. She wants to trans your kids. She wants unlimited abortions. She wants to take over the economy and have price controls, on and on and on. They're like, I can't vote for that. But Trump is too mean. Trump is an asset of Russia. He does Putin's bidding. They like this Nikki Haley style Republican. And Minnesota, especially, haven of the neocons, this is the mindset of so many voters in Minnesota and certainly across the nation. I mean, somehow Nikki Haley lasted in the primaries as long as she did. But they're just like, yeah, we need to be in wars still. we need to compromise with these communists that would gladly throw our leader Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life if he loses the election. But yeah, we can't do this, we can't do that. How dare we take a stand for American manufacturers and get tougher on the trade deals with China? It is all absolutely bonkers. Certainly, someone like a Nikki Haley is bought out. Are these her ideas? I don't know. I don't even think they know who they are at this point. They have been paid so many millions of dollars. I mean, she worked at Boeing between her tenure as the UN ambassador. Yeah, let's get rid of the UN, by the way, while we're at it. Between the UN and running for president, she worked at Boeing and made millions of dollars. This is someone that was almost broke before and then bought these fancy houses. She's all gussied up now on her own serious show. I don't know what Nikki Haley believes. I think she's just memorized the script from all of her donor classes that like having these wars like Boeing because then they get to create more weapons and munitions and enrich themselves in these conflicts. But the average voter, you're listening to Nikki Haley and you're like, that resonates with me as a conservative American. Like, something is fundamentally wrong with you at this point. There is no difference between a Nikki Haley and a Democrat at this point. The only difference is Nikki Haley pretends to be conservative. There is nothing conservative in 2024 about anything she just said. And to be clear about the conflict in Syria, the atrocities committed in Syria, no one is condoning that. No one condones what happened over there. But the idea that you can't talk to other world leaders, no matter how awful they are, what's the alternative? And I think the best recent example is Donald Trump going over to North Korea. What was that, in 2017? They thought World War III was going to break out with Kim Jong-un being crazy. Donald Trump went and spoke to him, met with him, the first president to do so, and you haven't heard boo since then from North Korea. I want a president that dialogues with other world leaders to ensure a safer world. Again, the alternative is a Joe Biden or this neocon policy of like, we can't talk to Bashar al-Assad, or we can't talk to Xi Jinping, or we're going to talk to Vladimir Putin. That's treasonous. So you'd rather not talk to them, let them do whatever they want, rather than find a solution to guarantee that the world remains peaceful. I honestly don't understand this talking point. I understand why they say it, because it fearmongers and it gets you hyperventilating. Why wouldn't we want to talk to them? Honestly, if you're in the chats, if you voted for Haley in the primaries, or you identify as a neocon warmonger voter still with a few conservative principles, let me know what I'm missing in the chat. Why wouldn't we want to talk to other world leaders? Even if you're al-Assad and you gassed your people, or you're Kim Jong-un and you're starving your entire population and building a nuclear program, why wouldn't we want to talk to you to stop what is happening, or at the very least contain what is happening? We don't need to be the world police and go in there and say, all right, Kim Jong-un, nuke program's gone, here's troops on the war. Okay, Syria, we're sending in 20,000 people in this battalion, so you stop doing that. I'm not talking about world policing, but you can talk to these leaders. Someone let me know in the comments below why we shouldn't be having these conversations. We got a comment here from the Archduke. Thank you, Archduke of Duchy of Chen, for commenting. I have no idea why Nikki pulled better than Vivek. I cannot believe why a real person would be interested in Nikki. Thank you. Thank you, Archduke, for your comment. Thanks for watching the show. Thank you for pointing out the obvious. Yeah, remember, folks, she pulled better than Vivek. Honestly, you can go back to my other podcast that I do on Friday on Freedom from the Press that airs on our main Rumble channel, the American Tribune. I think I said at the time, like, yeah, I was going to vote for Donald Trump. I wanted it to be Donald Trump. Really, it had to be Donald Trump. But I would not have necessarily been upset if it was Vivek who won the nomination. Vivek is so good. The fact that someone voted for Nikki Haley in the primary over, let's say you hate Donald Trump because you believe the corporate media lies for the last 10 years. Oh, he tweets mean words, or he said that about women let you grab him, which is true. I'll say it every time I reference the Access Hollywood tape. It is true that sleazy women are attracted to men in powerful positions, and they will let men have their way with them. That is women's nature. They are attracted to men that have status, wealth, power. Donald Trump simply spoke the truth, and people hate him for that. He speaks a lot of truth that people hate him for. But what in the world? Even if you hate Trump, you chose Haley over Vivek. Archduke, great comment. I'm speechless. Honestly, sometimes I'm speechless when I listen to Nikki Haley talk, or I'm watching the Democrat or the Republican primary play out, and people are supporting this woman and her entire worldview. It's not just supporting Nikki Haley; it's supporting her worldview. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But we have so many other neocons to talk about here. Why don't we, for no other reason than because it is Susan Collins, let's listen to Susan Collins here. I did my entire show on Tuesday talking about how Democrats have one play in their playbook, and that is to accuse you of sexual misconduct, accuse you of all sorts of things. Kavanaugh is now a verb, I think in our cultural lexicon, not just Democrats, but Republicans use it too. I mean, Josh Hawley was out there on Fox News today or yesterday. He said they're trying to Kavanaugh Matt Gaetz, which is creating all sorts of salacious rumors and allegations about someone that you don't like because they got promoted or nominated to a position of power. I'm going to accuse you of gang raping someone, Brett Kavanaugh, because I'm an insane professor at Berkeley, and I'm afraid that you're going to go in the Supreme Court. So I just accuse you of gang rape, and Christine Blasey Ford's never had any consequences for just outright lying about that. So now it's Matt Gaetz' turn, because Matt Gaetz is an outspoken, unapologetic, America First politician. He's one of the few that actually cares about the American people more than the establishment. And so they've got to go after them. And Susan Collins, even though, we got to say this again, even though the DOJ and FBI investigated Matt Gaetz for 3 years and found nothing because the witnesses were not credible. I broke it down in the podcast on Tuesday. The people coming forward with allegations of Matt Gaetz, Joel Greenberg, the guy ringleading this, accused someone else of the exact same thing. And by the way, he's the one that was having sex with the minor, the same minor that he says Matt Gaetz had sex with. So completely uncredible. This guy is in prison right now for tax cheating. These people are insane. Nobody should be listening to them. Biden's own DOJ said there's nothing here. But that's not going to stop Susan Collins from going out there saying, hey, we need to investigate this. Newsflash, Susan, they already did. But here she is talking about Matt Gaetz. And Susan Collins, Republican senator from Maine, has an important vote for the confirmation. And here's what she had to say.
I was shocked by the nomination, given the many allegations, but that's why it's important that the Senate go through its process of making sure that we have a background check, that we have a Senate investigation, which involves extensive interviews and questionnaires, and then a public hearing.
Of the many questions I would have for Susan Collins, what will a Senate investigation review or uncover that the FBI and DOJ didn't? Are we supposed to believe that the U.S. Senate, in all its power, has more resources available to it than the DOJ and FBI when it comes to investigating stuff like this? And what are they going to investigate that hasn't already been investigated? Here's an idea. Why don't you read the report from the FBI and the DOJ, Biden's DOJ and FBI? And again, that's important because you think they wouldn't have a motive to go after Matt Gaetz, a big threat to the establishment? How about you just read what they found? What else can the Senate uncover? Like, honestly, what else can the Senate uncover at this point? But here we are, Susan Collins. Who needs Dems when we have Susan Collins from Maine? These people need to just reclassify themselves as Democrats. I don't want a third party. Just call yourself a Democrat. You, Susan Collins, have done nothing. I think Susan Collins, I'd have to look back in her voting history. Did she confirm any of Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices? Maybe one of them. Maybe I can Google that here as we play another video, but absolutely useless. Like, what is happening here? People feel so good about themselves, and that's all this is. Like, oh, I didn't vote for the Democrat. I'm a good person. I voted for Susan Collins. She's a moderate Republican. Folks, I am done with moderate. What does moderate mean? If you're on the fence, if you're some centrist or you identify as a centrist, again, I've had other friends, we're talking post-election, lots of things to discuss, obviously. And so many of them are just like, well, I don't vote on party, I vote on the person. Or I'm so middle ground, neither party represents me. And again, I would just ask, like, how are you not represented by the MAGA movement at this point? We all want a secure border. You lock your home at night. We all want to end wars overseas. You wouldn't go fight in Ukraine. We don't want to trans kids. You wouldn't play that game with your child. They stand for nothing that the Democrat Party does. Oh, but sure, I'm gonna look at the candidates on these issues as if every Democrat's not an insane, bought-out communist at this point. And when it comes to Republicans, I mean, maybe you're at the lesser of two evils point. Yes, I have pulled the lever for Republicans. They have an R behind the name because I refuse to vote for Democrats. You got to know what you're getting into, though. I don't think Maine voters are voting for the lesser of two evils. I think they're just actually in that camp. I'm in this neocon camp. I like the idea of a moderate Republican that goes along with Democrats all the time because she doesn't support mean tweets. But Susan Collins, absolutely useless. And I don't know what stories to believe at this point. I don't know how many senators are on the fence or are going to be a no or are going to be a yes when it comes to Trump's nominations. Simply put, if you don't support Donald Trump's nominations, you are ignoring the will of the people. You are not again, I don't want to use the word Republican. You're certainly not worthy of being in Congress supporting conservative Americans. You are there as a Republican to be the voice of conservatives. That is who largely is voting for you. If you can't do that, if you can't get Trump's nominations through, you have no business being there. And folks, we got to pay attention in the primaries a lot more carefully. Montana showed how it's done. They got Tim Sheehy in there. He got John Tester out of there. Somehow Montana had a Democrat senator. Sheehy coming in, but man, if you're in Kentucky or in South Carolina, and again, we got the Charlie Kirk clip coming up. He talks about so many other states, deep red states, that, again, if it's fundraising or name recognition, how are you still voting for the Mitch McConnells of the world? Kentucky has Rand Paul. Kentucky has Thomas Massey. And then they're still like, yeah, let's do Mitch McConnell. And I'll segue on that because I got ideas about that too. How does fundraising actually work? How does spending more ad money convince people? It's such a sad commentary on the American voter that they just need to be blitzed with ads to change their minds. Like, we are such a weak species at this point. I didn't know who to vote for, but I saw Mitch McConnell put out a scary ad against his opponent, or I'm voting in the primary and Mitch McConnell, because he can lie all he wants and there's no consequences, about an actual conservative, libertarian, Republican, challenger to his seat. I'll just lie about him, and voters are like, yeah, that sounded scary. I believed that 30-second political ad, which is designed to influence you. So I'll just vote for Mitch McConnell again. Honestly, how does money even work in this situation? How do you, as an American, not have your mind made up already? When it came to this presidential election, and Kamala Harris burned through like $1 or $1.5 billion in just a couple of months, Donald Trump was spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Who is getting their mind changed on these billions of dollars getting spent in election? How have you, as a sentient human being, or supposedly sentient human being, how are you looking around the landscape right now? How are you going to work? How are you looking for work? How are you trying to buy a new house? How are you watching your daughter or son enlist in the military and get sent over to Eastern Europe? How are you looking at any of this, living in a community that's been taken over by tens of thousands of illegal immigrants that commit crimes, do awful things to predominantly young women in your community? Yeah, great job, feminists. I have not heard a single feminist ever speak up about the illegal criminal situation. But how is this ad working for you? How do you not just look around and say, I don't like what's happening. I hate Democrats and their policies. I send my kid to this government school. They came home and told me that they're a bad guy because they're a white male, or turns out they have a classmate that now identifies as non-binary. Like, how are you living in the real world? And it takes a political ad to change your mind. Like, folks, if all it takes is 30 seconds of a fear-mongering political ad to get you to change your mind, I don't know what to say. You are a weak human being. You have no moral grounding. And that is why democracy will fail in the long run, because we can't be led by people that are voted in office by the rest of this mess. Okay, that was Susan Collins. Let us move over to, I love this clip. I'm going to do this clip, and then I got a few screenshots that will pop up as well. This is Joe Walsh. This man is completely irrelevant. When you talk about never Trumpers, when you talk about neocons, Joe Walsh is a name. I think, I'm almost 40. Maybe anyone younger than me, you're probably like, who is Joe Walsh? Maybe, I don't know what the age cutoff is exactly. Did anyone ever listen to Joe Walsh? Like, what a useless human being. But listen to his take. We're going to segue into Russia, Ukraine now a little bit. Listen to his take, and then Dave Smith, fantastic libertarian voice, Dave Smith. I honestly would love to see him play a role in the Trump administration, but this is so delusional. But this is what these never Trump neocon warmongers, these are the people impeding us from complete success and progress in the country right now with the Trump mandate. Take a listen to this clip.
Let me go to Jimmy.
She's either a dupe or an asset, because everything she's done the past 10 years and said has been exactly what Russia would want her to say or do. So she's either an asset or a dupe.
Someone got their talking points. Oh, this is about Tulsi Gabbard again. She said something that aligns with Russia's interests. Oh, that must make her an asset. Or you can be a real human being that thinks for yourselves and looks at the history of the United States actions in Eastern Europe and you say, gosh, it seems like if we hadn't pushed for NATO involvement so much, none of this would have happened. Imagine that. Here's Joe, and get ready for Dave's absolute takedown.
That's the dumbest standard ever. Who cares? If I said Saddam Hussein doesn't have weapons of mass destruction, that might be exactly what Saddam Hussein wants me to say. That doesn't mean anything. You see, Pierce, this is the trick here. And I'm sorry, I know you want to go to Julian, but the trick is that the same way they used to say Trump-Russia collusion, they wouldn't say Donald Trump's in a conspiracy with the Russians, you see, because that's actually meets the criminal code. And then so you just say collusion, because what does that even mean? They could have had a phone call. Okay, they're colluding, but that's totally legal. So when you say she's a Russian asset, you give this wink and a nod like she's a traitor, when what it means, and Pierce, you disagree with me on this topic too, but listen, the argument is that there were 1 million off-ramps to the war in Ukraine, and that the West chose to not take any of them, and that this war could have been avoided, and it could have been negotiated away. Now, the idea that if someone makes this argument, your counter to that is to say that you're a Putin asset. This is so, first off, it's just despicable and it's profoundly stupid. It makes absolutely no sense at all. But listen, at least during the original McCarthyism period, at least during the House Committee on American Activities, at least back then, there were some communists. Nobody is loyal to Vladimir Putin. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You're entitled. No, Tulsi Gabbard, of course, is entitled to her opinion as a citizen of this country. But if for 10 years your opinion is identical to Russian propaganda, we are entitled to question that. And someone like that,
you're saying nothing, and I'm entitled to make the point that that's the dumbest argument I've ever heard in my life.
You both made your points. Let me bring it out loud.
This is what we're up against, folks. These are the neocons. Life would be so much better. Again, the Democrat Party right now is completely irrelevant to what Donald Trump and the America First movement need. Democrats have no institutional power come January 20th. We have the White House under Donald Trump. We have a Republican-led Senate. We have a Republican-led House. We have the popular mandate, which means nothing on paper, but I think carries a lot of weight still. It communicates to, again, the White House, the Senate, the House. It communicates to all these institutions that the American people want change. They want the Trump platform. We voted for Republicans in this election, specifically Donald Trump and then down ballot, to do something different. We don't want to go back to, how far back do you want to go? Forever? At least since World War II? Mitt Romney versus Obama, John McCain versus Obama. You have George Bush in there. You've got Bob Dole. All of these folks believed the exact same thing when it came to foreign policy, overseas interventions. They didn't care about what happened to your dollar. They always wanted to tax you. We wanted Donald Trump to make a change. The American people in a plurality said that this is what we want. Democrats don't have power anymore. They don't have the votes. It is up to Republicans to make these changes. And with people like Joe Walsh speaking, with people like Nikki Haley speaking, with people like Susan Collins speaking, and so many others that we still have to get to, Mike Johnson, although I think Mike Johnson likes his House Speaker role, so I think he's going to get in line. That's my prediction. Mike Johnson is not popular among the America First movement. He has been too wishy-washy. What has he done since he became Speaker? Where was Anthony Fauci? Where were all of the sessions on accountability or exposure? Nothing ever happened. We never brought articles of impeachment to the floor, which would have sent a powerful message again to the voters that we're not standing for this. Mayorkas went through an impeachment hearing. How come we didn't try to impeach everybody? They all deserve to go. And yes, nothing would have happened. You impeach Joe, you get Kamala Harris. I understand that. Yes, you impeach these people. They just place someone else, but it still sends a message. Mike Johnson didn't do anything. I don't think he has done anything of consequence. We're still passing omnibus bills. Why is Mike Johnson not holding the government hostage and saying enough of DEI, enough of foreign wars, enough of open borders? We will not give a dime to the federal government until real change happens. He never did that. Again, it's campaigning on losing. You want to be on the losing side, so you can always point your finger at Democrats and say, this is the problem. If only it weren't for the Democrats. Well, newsflash, if only it weren't for the neocons, because again, Democrats will be in the minority in every branch. Supreme Court is on our side. The White House is on our side. The executive branch. The legislature is on our side. It is up to the neocons to stop neocons so much. Or if they're not going to do that, voters, it is up to you. You've got to primary these folks. We've got to start paying attention. No more influence from the Joe Walshes, the Nikki Haley's, the Susan Collins. They've all got to go. But they are the ones in our way moving forward. The next 4 years of the Trump administration will be determined by the influence of the neocon wing. I'll say the entire old Republican Party. Simply incredible stuff here. Okay, we did Susan Collins. Let's get that out of the studio. We did Dave Smith. Let's get that out of the studio. Here's one more. We'll just do one more clip. This was, if I can remember correctly, Trump's deputy assistant secretary, some useless title. Again, get rid of all these people in the deep state. Doge, come in and eliminate entire institutions, entire positions. I don't know why this guy had a job in the first place. We don't need that position. But here is someone, and then I'm going to go through an entire X profile, an entire X account. It's Republicans Against Trump. That's where I got this from. But here's some former Trumpers, just some establishment swamp creature, absolute neocon, pretends to be a conservative. And this is what he has to say about the incoming Trump administration.
RFK Jr. has diversity of thought, I think, is like saying Jeffrey Dahmer had cuisine differences. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And I think if insanity and diversity of thought are synonyms now, I think that's where we're at. Also, if you're looking at past performance is indicative of future performance, and Donald Trump ran all the competent people out of his last administration. I mean, we've gone from Mattis to Hegseth. So to me, this isn't really a surprise. These are loyalists. And if you look at their background, they are opinions. I absolutely agree with you, but they're informed opinions based on resumes, CVs, and what they've done in their past and what their past decisions have been. That's how you judge people. And when you look at what Donald Trump's doing right now, I think he fears people like Hirschman. He fears people like Mattis. He fears people like the lawyers. He fears people like Sarah Matthews, right, that were up there and said, hey, this is the shite that's going on right now, and there's something we got to do about it. And I think he's picking people now that are loyal. I think he learned a lesson. I think it's not DEI hires. I think it's BTK hires. I think it's been the need.
To piggyback off of this, I think that...
All right, I think the Cryon said he was a former Republican congressman, so there you go. And then he was on the J6 committee. Imagine that. Yeah, this is someone that really holds conservative values. I got to play the initial clip again, though. That was quite incredible. Did you catch the reference to Jeffrey Dahmer?
Saying RFK Jr. has diversity of thought, I think, is like saying Jeffrey Dahmer had cuisine differences. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And I think...
What is ridiculous is comparing any of this to Jeffrey Dahmer, a serial killer. RFK, you know, he has different positions. Yes, he absolutely does. A lot of people were opposed to RFK for a long time, joining Trump because they didn't like his past views on, let's say, climate change or gun control. But here's the thing. RFK loves the principles, the core principles of this country. And his whole motive, now that he's going to be nominated to lead up HHS, it's making America healthy again. I honestly don't care about anything else RFK believes, because he's going to operate in a specific window. He's going to say, you are getting poisoned by big pharma, by big ag, by big food, and we need to clean this up. How about we just go to Europe standards for a second? No food dyes. Let's just start there. How easy is that? Let's look at fluoride. Let's give people an option if they want fluoride in their water. How about we explore the vaccine schedule for kids? Do they really need over 70 injections when they're little babies? That's it. That is it. But then the whole train of thought about diversity of thought, yes, that is actually all I care about, is diversity of thought, because skin color and your sex are meaningless. But when it comes to Trump's cabinet, let me be clear, I don't want diversity of thought when it comes to making America great again. And he made it sound like a bad thing, like, oh, he's only going to pick loyalists that bend the knee. Again, trying to make it a pejorative, but like, yes, please, this is an ad for Trump doing what I elected Trump to do. I don't want different opinions in there. I don't want unity. I did a show on Monday because I was so fired up. I did an extra episode on how I don't want unity. I don't want diversity of thought in the Trump administration. I want Donald Trump to bring people in that are loyal to the America First cause. That is it. I do not want to compromise with any of these communists. I do not want to find middle ground with bad ideas that the Democrats offer. I want my ideas, the correct ideas, Donald Trump's ideas, to have full sway in the federal government. That is what we elected him for. That is why we elected him. We are done with the Democrats. We are done with neocons. We're done with the establishment. We want change, and that change will come from Trump picking people loyal, not to him as they try to make it frame. We are not in a cult. We are loyal to ideas, and we're loyal to the ideas that Donald Trump has promised us in his campaign and is already making good on. If you look at his nominations, if you look at the peace that is getting set up around the world, and yet there is an escalation in Ukraine and Russia, I like to think that Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin are going to have a relationship again, that this stops, that we will find peace. I played a clip, I think it was on Monday, where Donald Trump was asked, who do you want to win the war, Ukraine or Russia? And Donald Trump's response was not picking sides. It was that, I want people to stop dying. I want this conflict to stop. Donald Trump will do that. We already saw other conflicts. I think it was Hamas. They were already trying to figure out, how can we find peace with Israel? All these conflicts around the world are already coming to a close because Donald Trump was elected. That is it. So yes, I want people loyal to the America First cause. No compromise, no unity. They need to come crawling back to us and say, I was wrong. I now want to be part of the America First movement. Absolutely delusional to take. But again, Riggleman, Republican, let's get the air quotes in there. This is what we are up against. And if you're on the J6 committee trying to impeach Donald Trump over a hoax and try to imprison all of Donald Trump's supporters after they were let into the Capitol building by FBI provocateurs, that is a disgusting human being. All right, the last video clip that we'll get to, we've got Charlie Kirk, and we got more to go over about this, but Charlie Kirk calling out too, you live in a deep red state, you think that you're getting represented. You think that your deep red values, your conservative values, your limited government principles are getting represented in Congress. Nothing could be further from the truth. Take a listen.
And here's what's so exciting. Do you live in Idaho? Do you live in Kansas? Do you live in Arkansas? Do you live in Mississippi? Do you live in South Dakota? Those 5 states. You guys might have felt, oh, we had no role in the Trump election on a battleground state. No. Guess what? Your senators very well might end up being the issue of Trump not getting his cabinet. We might be coming to a city near you. For those of you in deep red states, Idaho, Kansas, South Dakota, Mississippi, Arkansas, those are the big 5, and then maybe North Carolina. You might have felt as if you did not play a role in Trump's movement. There's still something you can do. We'll tell you what that is as it materializes, but red state senators from blood red states, they better give Trump his cabinet.
Absolutely. I had to find out who these senators were. I went to Wikipedia just because they've got everybody there. I'm going to read off some names of these blood red states, as Charlie Kirk called them, deep red states. These are people that overwhelmingly voted for the America First movement and Donald Trump. He crushed Kamala Harris in all these states by like 2-1, 3-1. Let me read off some names of these senators, the Republican senators from those states, and you tell me if you've even ever heard the name before or you've ever heard them speak up about MAGA principles. How many neocon senators do we have? I'm going to go in alphabetical order. This is Alaska. Lisa Murkowski, absolute rhino. Lisa Murkowski is awful. And then, have you ever heard of Alaska's other senator, Dan Sullivan? Dan Sullivan? Nope. Let's move on to Arkansas. I think more people are familiar with Tom Cotton from Arkansas. He loves government spending. But then, have you ever heard of John Boozman? John Boozman, has he come out in support of Donald Trump? You've got, he mentioned some other deep red states. So, and here's the thing. Here's Florida. Florida's got Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and Rick Scott, who we wanted to be Speaker. Florida gets the job done. Florida elects the right people. Marco Rubio, Rick Scott. Rubio, yes, in his past, outspoken against Donald Trump. Someone that has woken up, though, and now will be serving in the Trump administration. And, of course, Rick Scott should have been the Senate Majority Leader. And instead, you've got John Thune. We'll get to South Dakota in just a second, but there you go. John Thune, South Dakota, deep red, very conservative, electing these absolute horrible rhino neocons. Idaho. Idaho blew me away. Idaho's governor is bad enough, Brad Little. And then you've got, I'm going to say his name wrong, Mike Crapo, and Jim Risch. Who are these people? Idaho. We need MAGA senators in there. Indiana's got Mike Braun and Todd Young. Have you ever heard anything from them? Anything? And some of these folks might have a MAGA bent to them. I am showing a little bit of my ignorance right now. But for the point of my argument, I'm just saying, have you ever heard them speak up? Like, these are people that I have never heard from at least on the national stage. It is very easy to go viral if you support Donald Trump, because then the media attacks you, then the neocons attack you. They say, oh, look at you, you're a Russian asset, you're repeating Russian talking points. I have never heard either of these people from Indiana speak up. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not trying to besmirch anybody if I am wrong about this. Let me know in the comments below if you're from one of these states and you're like, hold on a second, Todd, like, this guy is actually a pretty solid senator. Like, let me know in the chat, let the audience know. I'm simply saying that I have never heard these names before, especially when it comes to speaking up in vocal support of the America First movement. Iowa's got Chuck Grassley and Joni Ernst. I mean, Chuck Grassley's like 100 years old. Joni Ernst, I don't think we're impressed with her. Kansas has 2 Republican senators, Jerry Moran and Roger Marshall. I mean, these guys have the pearly white teeth. They've got the tanned look. I don't know anything about them other than I've never heard their name before. I haven't heard them speak up in support of Donald Trump. Kansas viewers, let me know if I'm wrong. Kentucky, the infamous Mitch McConnell. He's 82 years old. I'm not a big guy on age. I think if you're 1,000 years old and you have an America First bent, I will vote for you. I don't care how old you are. I don't care anything about you. I don't care if you're a man, woman, black, white, you're 30 years old, you're 100 years old. If you're going to be America First, I want you in there. But Mitch McConnell, what else do you have to say about him? Louisiana, Bill Cassidy. Is Bill Cassidy a name that we recognize speaking out a lot? The other one is John Kennedy, who is fantastic for the most part. But Bill Cassidy, I have never heard that name before. Maine is always a disappointment. So you got Susan Collins in there, who we played a clip about. And the other one is Angus King. I have heard Angus King speak. He is listed as an independent. And again, I have no respect for people in the middle. If you had the L behind your name, libertarian, we saw what Chase Oliver did to the Libertarian Party, so it doesn't mean a whole lot, but at least it means you're trying in my books. At least you recognize the threat of the federal government. But Angus King, this independent, because Maine, yeah, if I have any Maine viewers, let me know if I'm on base. What is happening in Maine that you like this moderate Republican, slightly conservative? Again, we got to air quote the word conservative. Angus King is on record saying war in Ukraine would be a good thing for the American economy because we produce munitions. He actually said that. This disgusting warmonger, no doubt paid for by Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and all the rest, said that we should support the war in Ukraine because it'll bolster the American economy. This man is evil incarnate right there. Let's get millions of Eastern Europeans killed or displaced so that our weapons manufacturers can help the economy. Absolutely disgusting. Scrolling down through, I just passed Minnesota. Don't get me started. But Mississippi. So here's what Charlie Kirk was talking about. Mississippi. Roger Wicker and Cindy Hyde Smith. Who are these people? I am reading this list for the first time. I have never encountered these names before in all the work that I do. I watch more C-SPAN than probably half of the C-SPAN producers. We watch a lot of C-SPAN clips so we can produce content on our Facebook pages, put some content on our YouTube pages, look for some content that can be spun up into articles on the AmericanTribune.com. I've never encountered the names Roger Wicker and Cindy Hyde Smith before, both listed as Republicans. And as I'm reading their bios, Cindy Hyde Smith was a lobbyist before. So take that for what you will. I think Missouri's got an okay cohort. Josh Hawley, I know that different people have different opinions on Josh Hawley. I think he will support the Trump administration. And Eric Schmidt is a fantastic, he's the junior senator from Missouri. He's doing a great job. Montana, so Tester got booted. Tim Sheehy's going to replace him. Sheehy will be great. But Steve Daines is the other one. Montana, I'm glad you recognize that Tester had to go. Please get rid of Steve Daines the next go around. Again, complete sellout to the conservative America First movement. Nebraska's got Deb Fisher and Pete Ricketts. Nebraska viewers, let me know in the comments below. I don't think I'm impressed with either of them. As we scroll down to the next Republican stronghold of North Carolina, you've got Tom Tillis and Ted Budd. Tom Tillis and Ted Budd. Have you ever heard them speak out in support of Donald Trump? How many Republican senators do we have on here? I think most of them, I'm probably not being fair to them. I think most of these people will confirm his appointments. At least they'll get along. They'll hop on the bus, the MAGA bus, and do the right thing. But who are these folks? Again, are they outspoken voices for the America First movement, that I am not sure about. North Dakota, again, I'm just reading names here because I've never heard of them before. John Hoeven and Kevin Kramer. John Hoeven and Kevin Kramer. I'd love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong about their America First burnishings, credentials. I'm not positive. I am not positive. So Ohio's got a good group. They've got Sherrod Brown getting kicked out. This is one of the seats that swung to Bernie Moreno, who's going to be a fantastic senator. And then J.D. Vance, of course, J.D. Vance's seat will be up. Governor Mike DeWine, we will see what he does there. Will he appoint a MAGA senator, or will spineless tyrant DeWine, who loved locking down his state during COVID, even though Ohio, what did Trump carry Ohio by? Like 16 points in every election I think Trump's been in. It's just been a landslide for Donald Trump. But this DeWine fool, he loved his COVID tyranny. So we'll see who he puts in his place. Oklahoma's got, man, these guys are slick. James Lankford and Mark Wayne Mullen. Both of these guys have got to go. Lankford completely sold out the America First movement. He was the one on the floor promoting that bipartisan border bill, the just god-awful bipartisan border bill. You will hear in the media still, and from Democrats, and this is what they were trying to tell you before the election a couple of weeks ago, we had a strong border bill in place, but it was Donald Trump that got on the phone and told Republicans to vote no, and that's why we have the border crisis. Never mind the fact that Joe Biden undid all of Trump's executive orders on the border. He made sure that tens of millions of these people could come into the country, many of them released from prisons in their home country. Didn't matter, didn't need to vet them, didn't need to COVID test them, by the way. Remember when you were locked down in your home, forced to get an injection to go to work, forced to take COVID tests to prove that your runny nose wasn't COVID? Remember when Joe Biden didn't ask any of that from the illegals that came in the country in 2021 and 2022? No COVID testing to come in here. You didn't need a vaccine if you're crossing the border. Like, at the very least, if you're going to let them in, it should have been get in line, take one in the arm, go on your way to go murder and rape American citizens. But they didn't even do that. But James Lankford was one promoting that bipartisan border bill that would have sent hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, tens of billions of dollars to Taiwan, Israel, and Gaza, because we funded both sides of that conflict, continue to do so, would have codified, I repeat, codified the numbers that we saw in the Biden administration. So it wouldn't have built a wall, stationed troops, cut off welfare programs for all the illegals that came here. We wouldn't have taken away their rent or their stipends or their health care or their access to education here. We would have just codified and said, okay, now we will just allow 3 million people to come into the country each year. And you know what we will fund at the border? More border agents to process them. That's what the border bill said. It was an atrocity. It was an absolute atrocity. And Lankford brought that forward because he's so bipartisan. So Oklahoma, there is your senatorial representation. South Carolina. Oh my God, South Carolina. I think this is worse than Kentucky because you have two guys in there, Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott. Tim Scott just says whatever he wants that day. Lindsey Graham, do we need to say anything about Lindsey Graham? Like, when you think of the embodiment, the personification of RINO, neocon, warmongering, it is Lindsey Graham. South Dakota, here we go. You got John Thune, incoming Senate Majority Leader. Nobody wanted John Thune. The America First movement wanted nothing to do with him because this dude's just been in there doing whatever the swamp wanted him to. But again, he got a majority of the votes. Every name I'm reading off, how many of them voted for John Thune? I think we could probably pull it up if we wanted to. Most of them, without even reading names, most of them, because he's your new Senate Majority Leader. Disgusting. And then Mike Rounds. This is the first time I'm ever coming across the name Mike Rounds. But there you go, South Dakota. There are your two, quote, Republican senators. Tennessee's got Marsha Blackburn, who I like. Bill Hagerty. I think we like Bill Hagerty. But there's Tennessee's. Texas is an abomination. They have John Cornyn in there. John Cornyn, Texas. And again, does ad spending work? Like, at this point, if you're a Texas Republican, either you are just not paying attention or you support this. And I said earlier in the show here, it's one thing for these guys to go up there and neocon their way through all their lobbying money, but voters want this. Let's pull up the comment from Archduke before. He's saying, I have no idea why Nikki pulled better than Vivek. I have no idea why voters that are Republicans are voting for John Cornyn. Do your homework in the primaries. There's got to be somebody in the state of Texas that can do better than John Cornyn. Utah, again, Utah's got the Kentucky going on. They got Mike Lee, who is just fantastic. We need 53 Mike Lees in the Senate, as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, Mitt Romney. I think Mitt Romney said he would be stepping down. Thank goodness. And then actually on the show, well, he is stepping down. He got replaced by John Curtis. So here's my commentary on Utah. You elected John Curtis, who was a former congressman who is useless, and you had a chance to do Trent Staggs, who I had on the show. I think it was in June. It might have been June or July. We had Trent Staggs on the show in the primary. Utah voters overwhelmingly wanted him in the primary process, but because Utah, again, deep red Utah is so corrupt at the state level, they actually changed the way the voting works. I think this was in response to when Mike Lee was elected, because the state swamp in Utah said, well, this is no good. We can't have voters get what they want. We can't send another Mike Lee to the Senate. So they changed the rules. Trent Staggs won, I think, 70% of round one. And because Utah was like, well, that was just one primary system, you have to go through another process. Somehow John Curtis got it that time. But again, Utah voters, you voted for John Curtis. The majority of Utah voters in that nomination process, the primary process, voted for John Curtis. I don't get this. I just don't get this. I expect John Curtis to rhino himself all day long. That's what he does. But voters, what are we doing? You had Trent Staggs. He would have been a much, much better senator. And as we're scrolling down here, we got Wisconsin. Ron Johnson was really strong on COVID, but look at Wisconsin. I don't get this either. I don't understand how you can have a Ron Johnson in one seat and a Tammy Baldwin in the other seat. And you had a chance to get rid of Tammy Baldwin, and you didn't. That's where we're at with Wisconsin. Wyoming, you let me know about these names, my Wyoming audience. John Barrasso and Cynthia Loomis. John Barrasso, I've heard the name before. Cynthia Loomis, this is the first time ever I've encountered that name. I've never heard her come out and support Donald Trump. Have you? And again, I might be wrong on a lot of these. I probably am. I imagine we have more MAGA support than I indicated. But the point is, who are these people? I don't know these names. And if you live in that state, do you even know these names? Do you know who you're voting for? Or did you just see an R and you're like, that's good for me? But we've got to do better. We need to get Republicans in the Senate. We need to get representatives in the House that are going to promote the America First movement. And again, who needs Dems when we have neocons? All of these neocons in the Senate, in the House, they will be the impediment to Donald Trump's administration, just like they were in 2016 when Donald Trump, 8 years is a long time ago, it's a lifetime in politics. Donald Trump entered the White House in 2016 with a Republican-led House and Senate, and nothing got done. He had Paul Ryan as Speaker, the useless neocon sellout, Fox board member Paul Ryan, and he had a Senate majority led by Mitch McConnell. So there you go, folks. Neocons, they did it before. They're trying to do it again with John Thune, but Trump had Mitch McConnell as Senate Majority Leader and Paul Ryan as House Speaker. That is why in 2016 to 2018, before Dems flipped the House, or rather flipped the Senate, why nothing got done because of the useless neocons. All right, let's pop this up here. We are not done with neocons. Just neocons everywhere. Meghan McCain tweeted out, this was on November 20th, yesterday, maybe the new Trump administration and Speaker Mike Johnson should just legalize sexual assault since it clearly is completely meaningless to all of them. Again, this is referencing the allegations against not just Matt Gaetz, but also Pete Hegseth. And again, I debunked them. I went through them all. I explained what was actually happening on my show on Tuesday. Meghan McCain just repeating Dem talking points, neocon talking points, that's one and the same, that, okay, because a woman came forward however long ago, we need to believe it. And we need to believe that these men are guilty, no matter what the evidence is, no matter what the DOJ and FBI said under Joe Biden. Matt Gaetz is still guilty because someone is saying it. And as far as the Pete Hegseth case is concerned, let me just frame it up this way. He is not denying a sexual encounter. It took place in 2017 at a hotel. He was drinking. The female he was with was drinking. That female was with her husband at the time. What woman would do that? Well, a woman that regrets it later on and to save face would accuse you of all sorts of things. I don't know what else to tell you. It was there, it happened, but they are trying to frame it up now as the R word when every pattern indicates otherwise. In the local police report, they found that she lacked credibility. I think she even went through the KIT process and they didn't find anything that would suggest it was the R word. This is a woman, a married woman who, looks like my husband found out. So that's all there is to see there. And if you want to talk about sexual impropriety, you do that. I am not. I am talking about Pete Hegseth as a fantastic DOD nominee. That's what he's in there for. And if you want to be so much better than everybody else, then you got to look at all of Washington, D.C. And I made this point on Tuesday as well. You're going to get mad about Pete Hegseth and then just ignore all the other shenanigans that take place in Washington, D.C. You're going to ignore the taxpayer slush fund that Congress has to pay off victims. You don't get up in arms about any of that. You likely don't know about any of that, but you will get mad about Pete Hegseth because the media is telling you to. And of course, the Matt Gaetz thing, completely debunked. You can go back and watch the show on Tuesday. You spend a lot of time on that. The witnesses are not credible either. It is a political hack job. But Meghan McCain is too good for the truth. She's such a neocon that she says those allegations are all true, even though the people that did the investigations didn't think so. But Meghan McCain, continuing Dad's legacy of just being a useless Republican, an impediment to actual conservative principles getting enacted in this country. All right, and we're going to wrap it up here. This is the Twitter account that we will go to next. I'll just help you guys scroll through their page to see just how pervasive this neocon sentiment still is. I mean, this account has like 800,000 followers. Republicans against Trump. I'm just going to say it. If you're a Republican against Trump, I'm not going to say you're not a Republican because I think that's what Republican means at this point. A Republican means I like the swamp. I like the uniparty. I like being nice and being a centrist or going along with Democrats because I don't want to offend the editorial board at the Washington Post and the New York Times. But they write this, and we just have to talk about this entire thought process. These people are so wrong about everything. So they write on Twitter or on X. Breaking, Russia fired an intercontinental ballistic missile at Ukraine for the first time since the beginning of the war, but Trump told Putin not to escalate. They ignore, we're going on almost 3 years of this. This was February of 2022. Magically, when COVID disappeared, I said this at the time on X. You can go back and say it. I wasn't the only one. Do you realize that the overlap was perfect? We stopped talking about COVID when this war broke out. It overlaps perfectly. We were still dealing with vaccine mandates, Supreme Court hearings. People were still out of work because they refused to get the job. Having some technical difficulties on the background, it looks like. We were talking about COVID every day until Russia-Ukraine happened, and then COVID went away. Then we stopped worrying about getting sick. That's how sheepish people are. Mask up, vaccinate, boost, 6 feet, and then it all went away overnight when Russia-Ukraine happened because whatever the media tells me that day, plug in the new chip, give me some new information, have me a new narrative to parrot. But what a stupid comment. There's no other word to describe this other than just stupid. Trump told Putin not to escalate, and so somehow it is Trump's fault that Russia retaliated against Ukraine sending British-supplied munitions into Russian territory. Number one, Trump is not president. Number two, Joe Biden has been cheerleading this from the beginning. This could have been resolved within a couple days. All the United States had to say was, you know what, Russia? Oh, and there we go. Now let's see if we can fix this really fast. There you go. You get to see how the sausage is made. See if we can multitask at the same time. Boom, we're back up and running. The entire Ukraine-Russia fiasco is on Democrats. It is on the Uniparty. Donald Trump had nothing to do with it because guess what? Donald Trump wasn't president. And anything that continues to happen, do you realize you have to be insanely stupid or just flat out lying to ignore the reality on the ground that Joe Biden is continuing in this very moment, is wiring billions of dollars to Ukraine. Ukraine just got access to British missiles that have been fired into Russia. Joe Biden did that. Democrats did that. The globalists did that. And when Russia retaliated, these losers, these lying demons, want to pin it on Donald Trump. Like I said, you have to be insanely stupid or just egregiously lying, you are vile. This account is vile. Anyone that parrots this or repeats this or think that this makes sense, you are supporting evil. You are supporting death of countless civilians, and mostly at this point, if reports are believed, the Ukrainian military is people that have just been conscripted against their will to fight. You are responsible for their deaths. This is a disgusting comment. And how deranged do you have to be to blame Donald Trump for any of this? Will this account apologize on January 20th when Donald Trump steps into office and the war ends? Donald Trump, what do you want to say? A day or two, the war ends? A week max? Like, this conflict is over as soon as Donald Trump takes office. This account will not apologize. They won't, add context to this tweet and say, hey, we messed up, or, we were wrong. Absolutely insane. This is pure propaganda. And I said I wanted to finish up the show by sharing just their entire account. And so they have this lovely quote from Lindsey Graham. This is perfect. We've talked about Lindsey Graham. How do you not when you have a show about neocons? If we nominate Trump, we will get it hard and we will deserve it. Yes, I want to deserve everything Donald Trump does. Donald Trump is the only person that can fix the mess that our uniparty has created. But yeah, good job, Lindsey Graham, saying that. Good job, Republicans Against Trump, for promoting that. All right, so there is the tweet that we talked about. Here is Republicans Against Trump going after Pete Hegseth. Again, it is a lie. If you want to go through the comments there, you can find them, Republicans Against Trump on X. Just read through the comments. Every single one is just like, you're lying. Here's the real truth. But they put this up there because it has the R word in it, and they think, well, you're guilty. All right, they retweet comments that Gates should have been charged with human trafficking, sexual assault of a minor, and solicitation of prostitution. It's always funny, too, when you see these leftists talk about that. Oh, he solicited a prostitute. Like, the left is the party of prostitution. They love prostitution. They're the party of human trafficking. They love open borders. Hundreds of thousands of kids, just kids, I'm not even including women of age, just kids are missing in this Biden administration. They don't care what happens to young girls, young women, women of all ages, dragged across the border, put in who knows what kind of homes against their will, have who knows what done to them. You can use your imagination. They are the party of trafficking, the party of prostitution. They love OnlyFans. They love this idea of feminist empowerment where you just get naked and sleep with guys. But somehow now when Gates does it, it's bad. These people stand on nothing. Okay, they're concerned when you lose Fox News. Yeah, Fox News should have been lost a long time ago. If you're watching my show, I don't know how much of a Venn diagram overlap we would have. It's like you listen to the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson or you watch Fox News. I don't know if there's both. If you are in the middle, stop watching Fox News. So they're retweeting Bill Kristol. Yeah, we could have done a whole episode of Neocons just on Bill Kristol. Oh, hey, George Santos, by the way. How many other Congress people, men, women, have been kicked out for more serious crimes than George Santos? All a fraud right there. George Santos was America First. That's why they hated him. That's why they got rid of him. And notice that it took agreement with the House to get rid of Santos. You can have people in there. Bob Menendez is still a senator from New Jersey, even though he's basically admitted to taking bribes in the form of gold bullion from Egypt. But yeah, somehow he gets still be a senator. But George Soros lied a little bit and embellished his resume. So that's bad. We can't have that. Again, they just go on and on about Matt Gaetz. Here we go about Hegseth. There's more Hegseth. There's the McCain tweet that I grabbed from them. Here's the clip that we played that I grabbed from him about this Representative Riggleman, the former Republican. And I love the crying too. Did you notice this here? I'm going to pause it there for a second. It says, Trump has so far picked 0 black Americans for cabinet. Who cares? Who cares? The most dangerous Trump cabinet pick. I wonder what they would say here. Let's just do the poll and find out. Ooh, they think Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard have... I don't even know how these deranged lunatics even decide who's more dangerous. They all think they're dangerous. They all are Russian assets. But Tulsi Gabbard is the most dangerous, according to Republicans Against Trump people filling out the poll. And then I don't even know what this is. Trump is not going after free speech. They live in fantasy world. And like I said, there's only one of two options at this point. Either they are that stupid or they are intentionally lying on purpose. Neither of those is a good response. Because again, this is an influential account. I think they have 800,000 followers. Yeah, we could go on and on about this. Yeah, 782,000 followers. That's not good if they're just that stupid, because that means they're influencing how many people that are also just that stupid. Again, talking about democracy. Open it up to everybody voting. Morons like this get to vote. And then often it's always based on incorrect information at best. Or again, I think I'm just going to accuse them of lying. These people are lying. They are propagandists. They're brainwashing their audience. Just a disgusting account. Republicans against Trump. Like I said, you can keep the name Republican for now. That's a pejorative in my world. I don't want Republicans anymore. I want America first. If you run as a Republican, I think you have to. New Hampshire makes a great case for that. Just run your libertarian candidates as Republicans. You automatically get 40% of the vote because people with conservative values, boom, major party. There's the R. So you get 40% of that. You get a larger war chest. I don't think Republicans nationwide, like think Mitch McConnell withholding funds in 2022 from Blake Masters, Kelly Shabika, when they had tight Senate races. But running as a Republican has its benefits. But as far as labeling yourself a Republican, if you're not a candidate, you can keep it. Like, if you're a Republican against Trump, you are just telling me you hate this country. That's all you're telling me at this point. You are ignorant, stupid, hateful, and you don't want what's best for your fellow citizens. But there we are, folks. Like, who needs Dems when we have neocons? Like, how easy was it for us to fill up an hour 15 of airtime today? This is all within the last week. Everything we played is within the last week. The neocons are desperate. Just like Dems, they can see the writing on the wall. They see that their time is up. But my goodness, are they out there in full force? Nikki Haley screaming on her own. Again, who's listening to Nikki Haley on Sirius? She's screaming at the top of her voice on her show. Joe Walsh has just gone completely mad with TDS. Partisanship, I think there have been studies on this. Partisanship actually makes you dumber. Joe Walsh is a case study in that. But they're all out there saying it. They're either collecting a paycheck, they're trying to grift, they're just straight up lying to you. And I said I would finish with a story today. It doesn't look like our guest Royce White is going to make an appearance today. Like I said at the beginning, busy man, things are happening. He's bouncing around on all sorts of programs. He runs his own show. We'll try to get him back on because he has a lot to talk about in Minnesota politics specifically. And I was going to use Minnesota as just an example, a microcosm of the problem that is prevalent and exists around the country. Minnesota is such a great example because I think it demonstrates what ignorance can do, what brainwashing can do. My friends, they're all family oriented. They're all good people. They're all moral people in the sense that they live their life right. They work hard. They take care of their family. They love their family. They go on vacations with their family. They support their kids. They have a clean house, tidy yard. Like, they do all the right things. They're not out there stealing or hurting people. They take care of themselves. They love their family. They love their social networks. They're good people. They're just wrong. They're misinformed. They've been brainwashed. Minnesota, maybe more than anyone else. If you come up here, let me know if you think otherwise. If you're from here, man, let me know about your friend group. Like, do you have a MAGA friend group in Minnesota? I do not. Most of my friends, if we do talk politics, they are astounded with what I say. And that's what I love about Royce White so much. People are shocked to listen to Royce White speak because he is blunt, he is unapologetic, and he's telling the truth. When I was a teacher, I taught in Arizona for a couple of years. I came back to Minnesota. Teaching was fine. Kids are kids. The system, you could see it right away. I think I know better than most. I was a teacher as an assistant principal. I got out because I was the bad guy. I was telling kids that, yeah, you're a girl today, lest I get sued. Or I was sitting down with a parent telling them, yeah, this is actually why your boy is a girl now, or this is why racism is so prevalent in the school system, and we need to dismantle all the oppressive hierarchies in the system, and whatever that means. Like, there's no actual solution or goal that they offer, but here I am spouting this, or being forced to spout it or sit through sessions about it. But when I was a teacher, going back to the original point, it was the teachers that were the hardest on students, and not hard in a mean way, but held them to the highest standard. It was the teachers that didn't sugarcoat things. You acted up today. You have growth to make on this test. I'm going to hold you to a standard of behavior. Kids at the time would say, I hate so-and-so. They're so mean. But do you know what happened? As I taught there long enough, and I saw all of my former students come back and visit, and we had a good relationship. I think you can judge just by listening to me. That is not my personal style. Everyone finds a style that works for them. But they would come back and visit me, and then they would go visit that really hard teacher. And you know who got the most love and recognition and hugs and adulations and gratitude? It was that mean teacher. Kids, they know it at the time. They don't like it, and so they'll verbalize it in ways of mean or hate. They know it at the time, and they absolutely recognize after the fact that When I said they were mean, he was showing that he cared. If you're just some wishy-washy, and I'll use education as an example because that's kind of the story we're telling. If you're some teacher that lets your kids throw stuff in the classroom or walk around or talk over you or talk during your lecture or get other kids off task, if you're just the teacher that wants to be their friend, they have zero respect for you. And when they graduate and come back, they don't care about you. They know you. They recognize you for what you were. You were just some spineless coward trying to keep things easy, didn't want to do the hard work of building a relationship with kids, but they all went back to the hard teacher, the mean teacher, because they knew that that person cared about them. And I think Royce White is the same way here. Minnesotans right now, even though they are in adult bodies, have the mindset of children. They listen to a Royce White, and I think by extension a Donald Trump as well. Someone that just calls it like it is. He speaks in a vernacular that is more common to us, and it's rough around the edges. You know, I'm going to call these illegal aliens rapists and criminals because many of them are. Imagine that. They got released from a Venezuelan prison for murder, and now they're in this country. So yes, we have illegals in here that are rapists and felons and criminals. And people bristle at that. And say, oh, I don't like that speech. Royce White just calls it like it is. The neocons in Minnesota's GOP party, they're awful. They're why we're losing. They're why we don't make any progress in this state. We need to end the war in Ukraine. He's been very vocal about that. We need to get tough on X. We need to do Y. We need to get rid of the federal government that hates you. People hear language like this, and I can attest when I say some of the stuff to my friends, they're like, I have never heard that before, and that is very harsh. But Minnesota adult voters have the minds of the children that I experienced teaching. One day, hopefully, they wake up, and I think we will get there. I am white-pilled when it comes to this. I think you are witnessing the decline in corporate media happen for a reason because people no longer believe the lies. They don't like having kids just wander around in their classrooms and curse at the teacher. They actually want a teacher to control their classroom, as it were. But right now, Minnesotans, they bristle at the message of Royce White. They don't like how he says it. They don't like what he's saying. But what he is saying is true. And we need more voices like him. We need more voices like Donald Trump. We need more people to call out the nonsense in society. And sometimes there's no nice way around it. We don't need a Mike Johnson going up there when he gets asked, hey, is Tim McBride a man or a woman? And he's up there saying, well, we're respectful of everybody. We're nice to everybody. No. Guess what? Tim, you're a man. You were born a man. You will always be a man. End of discussion. And again, the Minnesota voters, their children, oh, I don't like that. That was mean. He's not affirming his identity or he's not giving him respect. Two different things in that story. I'll say it again. I can call you out as a man, which does not conform with your own self-perception. And that's okay. I can still treat you as an individual when I interact with you. When I sit down and we work on legislation together, doesn't mean I'm just going to curse you out and make fun of you to your face. Like, I'll still treat you as a human being. You deserve that much. Maybe not anymore when this person comes out and takes selfies in a bathroom and posts pictures on social media saying, hey, look at me, I'm in the women's restroom as a man. Like, if you're going to be that insane, maybe you don't deserve respect. But if you're just some person going through some stuff individually, at the individual level, yes, it is different than at the macro level when we're talking about these ideas. And Royce White doesn't hold back. He is unfiltered. People need this message. And so I look forward to having conversations with him in the future. I look forward to him being in Minnesota politics in general. Rough around the edges in 2024, according to the voters, according to the electorate, but exactly the kind of message that we need. We need strong men. We need strong leadership in our political system. We have seen what happens when you let the Tim Walzes of the world, these doughy, effeminate guys, we can barely call them men at this point, when they go out there with their feminized worldview of just being nice to everybody, which is just a cloak for communism. Men understand hierarchy. Masculinity understands hierarchy. There are those that are stronger than others. There are those that are more charismatic than others. There are good ideas and bad ideas. We don't need to pretend that we're all the same. We don't need to pretend that we should all have equal outcomes. We don't need to pretend that saying the truth is mean. So we need more voices like Royce White. I think I've read reports already, and I hope he is serious about this, looking at a run for governor to unseat the tyrannical communist Tim Walz, maybe going after, I think it's Tina Smith's seat this time. Yeah, talk about no names. Minnesota has the two most vanilla senators on paper, They want you to they run these unoffensive older white women to be like, oh, look, they're just nice. They could be like your aunt. And they just support Democrats every time. So hopefully unseating Tina Smith, he lost against Amy Klobuchar this last time. We need more of that. We need his voice in the public sphere, and we need more of that in general. He is the polar opposite of neocons. That was the point of the show today. We are done with neocons. We are done supporting foreign wars. We are done supporting illegal immigrants. We're done with the welfare system. We're done with government taxing us to oblivion, spending to double oblivion. Wherever we're at this point, we could pull up the debt clock. Are we at $37 trillion yet? We're done with all of that. Limit the government. Make life better for Americans is not a hard concept. And you know what, folks? If it takes a little rough around the edges, if it takes a little anger, I am here for it. I am angry as well. We should all be angry that we have people supporting Nikki Haley in the primaries. We should be angry that Mitch McConnell still gets elected to the Senate. We should be angry that these people, once they get to the DC, aren't supporting the America First movement. So I welcome Royce White participation in this. He's a young guy. He has got a full career ahead of him. Very well spoken. He can speak on these issues. You should follow him on X. Hop in a space when he's talking. Your mind will be opened. We need people to speak to issues the way that he is able to. So I look forward to him continuing his run in Minnesota. I hope that there's a Royce White in every state that can unseat, either flip a seat from Democrat or just dethrone a RINO neocon incumbent that is absolutely useless for this country. But folks, with that, as we round up towards an hour and a half, I appreciate you tuning in today. Again, this was a live show. Thank you for the comments. Thanks for joining us today. You can find this, again, you can find this show, share it far and wide, whatever platform you use. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, and X today. We'll get some clips up over on Facebook. We'll pop this up on our Telegram channel. Again, you can find everything under the umbrella of the American Tribune, and that is our website. Check it out we got like 10 to 12 articles, news articles every single day at theamericantribune.com. Lots of good things happening on this network here. But that's it for now, folks. I think we're going to sign off. Thanks again for tuning in. We are back next Tuesday. We go every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Central. Hope to see you there.